Hello everyone, it is Christine here, and in this video I'm going to show you how you can transform a square or a rectangle of slow stitching into a beautiful little pouch that's in the shape of and the form of an envelope. So it's going to be something like this with then a little lid, not a lid, a flap that comes over, and we're going to have a little button enclosure, and we're also going to put a fun little label and fabric stamp detail on the front. So I'll be showing you all of that. And I figured it's great because we often get asked when we've got slow stitch pieces, what are you going to do with them? And so this is one idea, that if you've got a square of slow stitching, you can turn it into a little envelope pouch. You can obviously also make envelopes where you fold them up and then fold the lid down. Like if you wanted something for a glasses case or something, that could be perfect. But I really love the shape you get with this little envelope style pouch, and I love the fact that for this piece, which I've created from woven scraps of fabric, and if you want to see how to do this weaving and see me create this piece, it's actually in the previous video, so I'll include a link to it from the description below this video, or you can just look at my channel and look at the previous video, and I show you how to weave the fabric and I show you how to start slow stitching into it. In addition to the slow stitching I showed in the video, I also added some chain stitch here. And I also added, I think I was doing the French knots towards the end of the video, and then I also did some little cross stitches, which is what the lovely Sally from Dotty B had in episode 2 of her little What is Slow Stitch project. So that's a lovely little link to her project. She also showed straight stitch, I think it's called, yeah, where you're doing sort of stitches in parallel next to each other. And we may well use that actually when we come to put the little stamp and a little label onto the front of the envelope. So I'm going to show you how you can then take something that might have stitching on one side and how you can then add your own lining to it that has its own set of Kantha stitching. And this works best if you've got something that's got a bit of robustness in your middle between your outer piece of fabric and your lining piece. So this is just from a tablecloth. I'm just looking over here to find if I've got it. Yep, so it was just one I got as a vintage linen, well, not vintage linen, vintage cotton tablecloth. It had some holes in it already. It had obviously been well used. Wasn't a colour I'd used as a tablecloth, and I thought it would make the perfect little sort of inner where you might use a blanket. Works equally well. You could use some felt. But it's good if you have something that has a bit of substance, because it means you can then just stitch into it but not go right through to the other side. So I've saved some of the stitching so I can show you that in practice. Then I'll show you how it all folds together. I'm planning to add some of my special Nana's rickrack, I think, across the sort of top of the envelope, and I'll show you how to make these little labels, which you can then write on with friction marker and erase so they can become a little project pouch, or if you want to write someone's name and gift it to them. And I'll show you how to make these little postage stamps as well, which we're going to put on the front of the envelope. So let me just show you that as well. Give you a bit of a foreshadowing of what we're doing in this video. So the label will go something like this, and the little stamp will go something like that, but I will I'll talk you through the process for making your own version of those. And then, yeah, I'm thinking the rickrack will go somewhere across the top here. And I also want to make with you a little covered button using a shank button. I think I'll use one of these. It's an old sort of plastic made to look like a I think a leather covered button, but it's got a shank on the back of it, so you can kind of loop something around it. And then I was thinking we'll attach a little piece of this natural coloured fabric scrap. Again, it was something from when I was tearing all the fabrics off. It was thinner than what I needed for the project, but that can then become the little wrap to wrap around the button. But I'll show you all of that in process. So I think probably first step is to show you what I've done for the lining. So for the lining, I first of all folded in the scraps I had around the edge. So I folded them over the edge of my fabric, and then I used a bit of my Yoo-hoo glue just to attach them down. And the Yoo-hoo glue doesn't create like a firm bond, it just creates a nice bond enough to kind of hold it in place. But if you want to like peel something up, they come up perfectly well. So it's not a yeah, a really tough one. And if you wash your piece, it's actually water soluble. So yeah, it's actually nature-based, which is interesting, and it is made in Germany, it tells us, and it's acid-free and solvent-free. So it is good to use, and I love to use it. I'm not sponsored by them. People probably think I am because I do. It's my preferred medium for attaching fabric to fabric or attaching fabric and paper together. Now I'm using some vintage crochet thread for my Kantha stitching or running stitch. Kantha stitching is just a form of running stitch, or running stitch is a form of Kantha stitching. I think it goes the other way around though, but really who knows which one actually came first. Kantha stitching is used a lot in Indian textiles. And so when I started with this piece, I just cut a piece to approximately this size. Again, if you want to have non-raw edges, you can get a piece of fabric that's larger and then fold over the edges, tuck it in, and you can then use a bit of Yoo-hoo glue just to hold it in place while you get it stitched down. I was happy to have the raw edges here, partially because on all of these, these two sides here, they're going to be stitched together, so it doesn't really matter. And I wasn't too fussed around here. I can always come in with a blanket stitch or something if I want to stitch over the edges, if I feel they're at all at risk of fraying. There's like this gives off some tiny little threads, but I think once it's got a nice little sort of frayed edge on it, it will actually not give off anymore. So I'm actually just going to take a couple off the edge to get that nice little frayed edge effect. So I've got a large needle because I quite like a largish one. Actually, no, I think I'll use slightly smaller for this because I don't want to go through to the other side. Let's give this one a go. When I'm going through both bits of fabric, that's when I kind of use the larger one because I find it works quite well to push through both. But here we're only wanting to catch this level of this layer of fabric and the one underneath, but not go through to this side because we've already done our decorative stitching. So I'll just start by secreting my knot into where we're going to be putting the fabric down. So that's just hidden the knot there by attaching it. And then I can just pop over to the side where I'm going to want to start with my first of my stitches approximately. And what I've been doing is using some very old glittery, thankfully it doesn't let glitter off, but it's a washi tape, but it's not got much stick left in it. So I wouldn't be using it for anything. I really don't do that much in the paper crafting these days. And so I'm quite happy to use it for my stitchy projects. And it's really not sticky at all. So I've been finding, actually I'll move it down a bit, finding I need to put one of my little clips on it as well to hold it in place while I stitch along, and a little pin in the middle also. So let me just, have I got one of my little clippy clips around here? Sure I did. So I don't have to reach over the camera. Nope. That's okay. We'll just use a pin instead. These are just the sweet little applique pins, which are my favourite. If I have to use a pin, I'll use these, but I generally don't really like pins at all. So I've just stuck that down so it lines up with where I've got my stitching. Down here, likewise, I did a row of stitching and then started with the Kantha, started with the washi tape. And so then for my first stitch, I'm just going to put it in place, seeing how I can do it, that I can show you what I'm doing. Oops, try not to go in crooked. Where do I want to be? I want to be about up there, I think. And so I'm keeping my finger on this side so that I don't go through to the other side of the fabric. That's the goal with this. You want to just be stitching these top to the top layer and the middle layer, but not right through to the bottom. And if you keep your finger there, you'll be able to feel if you're sort of angling the needle wrong. And don't worry, like the odd stitch over to the other side, it's not going to ruin your piece, particularly if you've just done that sort of sample style stitching approach. It probably will just add to it. But in this case, I did just want to, have a different set of stitching on both sides. And I really love that this has got this really bright pop of colour inside this quite neutral pouch. But again, if you're doing your project, you choose what you want to do. You might want to do a really bright outside with your fabric weaving. You might have another bit of slow stitching that you want to use for this particular project. But I'm just trying, this year I really want to focus on things that use scraps of fabric, and I want to focus on, sharing ideas that you can apply to your own projects. And using my lovely Nana's beautiful green rickrack, which is going to have a special role to play in a special project. And don't worry if some of your stitches are a bit bodgy, as mine no doubt will be, because I'm kind of, having it at a slightly different angle for the filming, but that's okay. So I'm just stitching next to where the washi tape is, and the theory is that the washing tape will kind of keep me in some sort of alignment. We shall see. That will be borne out when we finish the row. But I thought I wouldn't make you watch me do all the washi tape, all the Kantha stitching, so that's why I put the first number of rows in place. So yeah, I've done pretty well even with the filming. It's not too bad, Christine. And as you work up, even with the washi tape, if you ended up with it like here, you can see it's probably just a tiny bit shorter, it's slightly kooky. You can just sort of sort that out by just moving your washi tape a bit and just helping to level it out through that process. Doesn't have to be precise. It's just the mass of stitches that creates a lovely effect, and the Kantha stitches help to hold this lining piece to the front piece and make it all kind of cohesive, is what I think the running stitch or Kantha stitch does. And that's Kantha, Kantha, if you haven't come across that. And never be afraid to ask a question. Some people sort of say, oh, I don't know what an aut is, or I don't know what Kantha stitch is. Yep, there's no silly questions around here. We're all learning. When you stop learning, you're dead. So keep learning. That's what I think. So yeah, very exciting. It is Friday night, which means not a whole weekend of stabbing myself with pins, hopefully, but a whole weekend of joy and fun ahead. It's going to be warm, so we are planning a picnic tomorrow and taking Travis to what we call Doggy Disneyland down the coast to the beach, to a special dog beach that he absolutely adores. And then we take down a nice little picnic and sit under the trees on the foreshore and have a lovely lunch after Travis has had a lovely frolic in the water. And then we go back and repeat the frolicking in the water for Travis, and usually for us if it's a hot day as well. And then we come back up to the foreshore, and it's very good actually, because there's a tap with fresh water there for like washing feet, and there's also a dog bowl there so the dogs can have a drink. But Alex has a lovely little attachment that just clips perfectly onto the tap, and so we're able to give Travis a dog wash as well while we're down there. So just a freshwater one. I don't use the soap because he doesn't need to be washed too often with the doggy soap, and it works beautifully. We've had people walk past and go, wow, what a good idea. So yeah, Alex gets full points for that. I was very impressed when he realised that he had a little attachment that could go onto the tap and use it to wash the dog, and also wash down our legs, because the sand that we get down at that beach, there's a section of it when you come into sort of shore that's like this grey colour, and it really cakes onto like your feet if you've got dry skin, and it needs quite a wash to get it off. So the hose definitely helps with that. So even though this washi tape isn't super sticky, because I'm using the pins, I'm able to use it multiple times, which makes me feel better. But I do have quite a few rolls of this. I think I again got it secondhand from somewhere, and it's really not going to cut it as a tape. But that's okay. It's good if we can use things in other purposes, as Annie Claxton, who's having her sort of use it or lose it year, says. Yeah, that's exactly what we've got to do. Bring new life to our old goodies. And if you're not using it, pass it on to someone else that might use it. So, or if you've got more than enough of something, maybe have a think. Have you got some stitchy friends you can pass it on to? that's what will be coming with my little project later in the year, sending out some little packages around the world and sharing some of the bounty from my craft room and some special little touches from me. So stay tuned for that. I'm just letting everyone sort of get started on their New Year projects because there were so many at the start of the year, and I did have a few people saying, oh, I feel a bit overwhelmed with how many projects are around. So I thought, yep, I'll let you get into that. Maybe sort of February we can kick off. I've got to make the videos and finish a few little setup things of logistics for mine, so that will give me some time. Had some an exciting message from my sister-in-law that my nephew wants to come over for Easter, over from Western Australia. So just starting out in the teenage years. So it'll be so lovely to have him come and stay with us over here, which means I have to get the spare room, not this room. So this is the craft and study for me, but the spare room where I've got boxes of stuff from when I have been packing up the other house. I need to get that all sorted out, so that will give me good momentum. And also my lovely friend Christy wants to come over at some stage for a bit of a long weekend and stitchy and crafty venturing and adventures. So that's another very good motivation to get it cleared out, because I don't want Christy sleeping amongst the boxes. My nephew probably wouldn't care at all, I don't think, but yep, definitely Christy. I've got to have a lovely bedroom ready for her. So that will be 2 Western Australians coming over to Melbourne, so at different times. And then it's a big birthday for my brother this year, so I will be going over to Western Australia around October for that. And I'm hoping my mum and dad will want to go over as well, and we'll probably rent a house near the beach or something for that. Originally, Alex and I were thinking of driving over with Travis, but it's probably just a bit too far, and we've already sort of booked some other holidays for this year, so Alex probably won't have the leave to go. But there will be a time we do the big trip across the Nullarbor. And put that in my little garbage bag. And so with the end, you can secrete it into your piece by just putting your sort of needle in, pull through, and then just pull it a bit tighter than it needs to be, and it will just spring back into your piece. So that's just a good little tip for hiding your ends. Of course, you can always leave an end out. Now this bit wasn't long enough to fold over and under, so what I'm going to do is probably just trim this piece, I think, because it's just not quite long enough. That's the thing with scraps. Sometimes they're not quite long enough to fold over. But as you can see, you don't really need to worry about the raw edge around here. It's absolutely fine. I think now we need to work out which way we're going to have as the bottom of our pouch and which way we're going to have as the top of the pouch. Do I have any particular preferences? Is there anything I particularly want to see? And there's a few ways you can fold your envelopes. I might show you those as well. You could fold this bit up a bit further and then have these bits a bit lower, but you're not going to, that would be okay if you just wanted to put a card or something in, but it's not going to be that great for holding a project. The way I think I'm going to do it is like this, so they're sort of all equally in. Another way you could do it is to, how did I have it? Or have that a bit lower. No, to have that a bit higher. That was more similar to what I had before, wasn't it? Yeah. So you could sort of, yeah, have it about like that, but I just don't think that's quite as, quite as useful for this. On the front, it would then look like, let me just kind of hold it so you can get a bit of a view. It would be more of that sort of longer envelope shape, but I want to kind of do the squarey envelope. But what I love is that it's going to give me the design sort of on on this sort of an angle, so you get that cut across of the fabrics, whereas if it's just like this, it's more the sort of checkerboard, but here you're almost creating the sort of the diamonds. Let me show you what I mean. So you've got that lovely, yeah, diagonals, which I think just adds a bit more interest. So I don't think it really matters which way I go. I think I'm quite happy with that. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that, and I'm happy with what I see there, unless I want to see these brighter ones. Maybe I'll actually do it this way. I think I quite like seeing these very brights up the top. Yep, let's go with that, I think. Yes. Yes. Okay, so what I'll do, just so I remember, actually no, that's fine. I'll just put it over this way. And then what we're going to want to do is put our little label and stamp on it. And I'll talk you through the process for making, actually we'll make one stamp together and I'll talk you through the process for making this, which is very similar to the stamp, except it's just obviously a more elongated piece of fabric. So this stamp is made out of 2 bits of fabric, one cut out to the sort of stamp shape and then another as a little picture within it. And I might make one the same again so you can actually see it in progress. I don't have the same scrap of backing paper, but I do have this one here which I can use. And I'm using pinking shears. You can also get cutters. They're generally for paper, I think, that have the little like stamp, little stamp sort of cutter on them. But I find the pinking shears cut better than those little paper craft ones. So that's what I'm going to use. Cut out whatever size you want your stamp to be. And you'll just want to give yourself the little stampy edges. Don't worry if you get a bit of sort of fluffiness. You can always trim that off. Oops, I didn't make a perfectly clean cut, but I'm sure we can fix that. And you can use whatever backing you want. I just had this one left from when I was making my little strips, so I thought I'd go with that. And then whatever little design you want to put on your stamp. I do have another fabric actually that has sweet little stamps on it as well. And you could always put, I suppose, a stamp within a stamp. Maybe we'll do that just for a bit of interest. But really, you can have anything that's got a little picture on it that you want to use. So just have a look through your fabric scraps for something. You could even, with a project like this, just cut out one of the little flowers from the lining fabric and put that on the stamp. That would work beautifully also. But for fun, let's just take one of these little shapes. Which one do we want? I'll just take one that's near the edge. So one near the edge over here. I've got this little rooster that's quite cute. And these you could actually use just as stamps by themselves, but we'll turn them into a stamp within a stamp because that's fun. So just cutting it out. Have I made my base big enough? Oh no, that's probably not. So this one I will keep just as a stamp. So maybe we'll go back to plan unless there's a smaller one on here. Is the strawberry a bit small? I think the strawberry's a bit smaller, so we'll give that one a go. Do you do that? You're crafting and you kind of just get dragged in so many directions with what you want to do. So some stamps go up that way, don't they? So we can put this one, little one on like that. I think would be cute. So again, I use my friend the Yoo-hoo glue. We will be adding stitching as well. And I'll just hopefully not have quite so much glue on it. And we can then just put that on the little stamp. Get rid of the excess glue that we don't really want, and get rid of our little bits of foof, but not the pin. Almost flick the pin off the table. And then we can do stitching in around this one. I just did some running stitch around the center and then running stitch around the outside. On this one I'm thinking I'll just do some little French knots in each of the corners. It does have some green on it, so I might even use, although I feel like it might want a little bit of a ready sort of strawberry colour as well. Could be kind of nice. But I want a nice, got these lovely Aurifil threads. I think these could be cute. Just put some little strawberry coloured French knots on it for something a bit different. I just used my, did you see? I just used my pinking shears to cut my thread. Probably not a conventional thing to do. Okay, so we're going to be attaching it down to whatever we put it on, so it doesn't really matter what happens on the back of it. But to do a French knot, do one wrap of the needle and then pop back into the fabric, just slightly different hole than the where you popped out. And then come over to your next spot. But yeah, do whatever stitching you want. I do quite like, because I did the extra decorative stitching around the centre as well. You obviously only need to stitch down your outside piece, but you can add whatever additional stitching you want. So hopefully this gives you an idea. I might do another video where we can just make a whole lot of stamps, because I probably will need them for my little project I'm going to be doing. My collaboration. It'd be nice to have some of these to include in the little packages that will be going out. Sorry, that one didn't sort of went right through, so I just needed to redo that. I think because I've got a bit of excess glue in there, and it's catching on a piece of thread on the needle. There we go. Yeah, I love this with the little, they're like little mini strawberries in the corner of the stamp, which looks very cute. And I even like actually the fabric, I didn't even think of it, but that almost looks like a strawberry sitting behind. Totally accidental. Love when that happens. Oops, I managed to pull out the French knot over that side. That's okay, we'll just go back and do it. It can be the problem when it just sort of pulls through. So I'll just be careful not to pull too much this time. But if it does pull through, you can just, go back and add another French knot. So there we are, that's the 4 of them. I almost feel like I want to trim the ends, although, but I do like those little ones down here that do look almost like strawberries. So I think I'll actually pop down there and turn those into some little strawberries as well, because I think that would be cute. Oops, that one has popped through again as well. We'll get there. In fact, no, it's going to sit back on the fabric. I can probably just attach it back on with an extra stitch. I think that will stay there, and then we'll do this one over here. Sometimes if you go back down through the same hole, it will pull through. And also this needle's probably a bit bigger than what I should be using. I think on the other stamp I actually used a milliner's or beading needle, which is a very thin needle. So just be careful with that. And then I wonder if I put 2 up here as well. Maybe where will I put them, in here or at the top of here? Where's the sort of, if I follow the line up, it'd be about there. Again, just lay it flat so it doesn't kind of, when you're passing that much thread along the back of it, you don't want to kind of pull it tight and have it go all bendy. Just be careful not to pull too much. Gentle does it. Yeah, I think that looks really cute with these little miniature strawberries scattered around the stamp. And sometimes it is just those little details. So you'll see there, that one pulled through as well. That doesn't want to, does that want to go back through the fabric? Yes. Let's see if we can just make a little knot there. Yeah. So I think that will be quite cute as another stamp for another day for another project. So I'll just come down and might just tie it off over here. And then I'll show you how I stitched my other stamp onto the piece. I wanted to go with sort of some of the colours from the inside, so the yellow and the green. But I love this little fabric. I got just a few squares of it in a scrap pack from the Sewing Lair, and it looks very, very vintage, very retro. So I really liked it. I actually sat it with some of my other feed sack fabrics. So yeah, I'll keep this little one. That's what that little strawberry one looks like. That will be used in another project. I'll keep my little rooster and either turn that into a stamp within a stamp. And then, yeah, for this piece, all I did was took a scrap of my lining fabric and a scrap of this green, which I had, and I just took a piece of the lining fabric and frayed it around the edges, and then cut a piece of this fabric that was slightly smaller and frayed it around the edges, sat them on top of each other. Again, you can use some Yoo-hoo glue, and then just did a running stitch around the outside of that. So where did I decide? I decided I wanted to have, I think, that up the top of my pouch. Yes, and this down the bottom of my pouch, which means I need to plan to put my label somewhat. So let's actually just put a dab of glue so it kind of stays and we don't have to keep rearranging it. So I think about, I've fallen down from my top, probably have it about there. And then our stamp just needs to be where our top will fold down. So somewhere up here, I think. So again, just a little bit of glue we'll be stitching it, so it will be held down. Won't be a problem. But about there, I think would be very cute. I actually think this needs to go up a smidgeroo. Foldy, foldy, turny ovary. Yeah, no, actually that can probably go down. Have I got that a bit high maybe? Yeah, I think about there. That's a good thing again with the Yoo-hoos. You can just move it around until you're sort of comfortable where something's sitting. Pretty good, I think. Great, so let's not get the glue all over everything. Oh, we do need to also put our rickrack on, but we can do that in a moment. So for here, I might just do another row. Actually, I might use some yellow. Have I got my yellow? I've got all my threads in little bags. And I'm just having a look. There's my yellows. I don't have as many yellows unless they're off on adventures at the moment. Don't really want to go fluoro. How would that one look? It's almost a greeny yellow, so I think that could go quite nicely actually. It's just a vintage thread. Random threads from random places. Will I use my milliner's needle? That's not my milliner's needle, but it's a nice fine needle that I probably won't even be able to thread. But if we thread, we'll take it as a sign that it wants to be used. So here again, I'll put my end inside, sort of behind it where it's going to be covered up. So I'll start by putting my knot there, and then I'll pop up through the piece. I could just do like French knots in each of the corners, but I think I'll just do a little running stitch around on the inside of the other running stitch. So in fact, I can probably have it even a bit closer, and I'll just try and sort of offset it from the other running stitch, so it's not exactly lining up. I just kind of like that effect when things aren't looking really ordered against each other. And you can probably barely see it, but it will just add another nice little slow stitch detail. That's often what we're doing with this. It's just like adding little details, and all together they make a beautiful, beautiful special piece. Like if you gave this to someone with a nice little card and maybe just a little present, or it is actually the present within itself when you're gifting someone the card, and then they can reuse the pouch to put into their purse or wallet. I just realised I don't think I caught the fabric. Oh, no, I did catch the fabric underneath there. Might have just missed the fabric in one spot, but it will still hold. So again, I'm keeping my finger underneath it so that I don't go through to the other side, and I'm just trying to catch this fabric and the top sort of base piece, and possibly through to the middle. Just enough to get this label nicely anchored down. So yeah, do head over and check out my friend Sally at Dotty B Vintage, who is doing the What is Slow Stitch project. And our good friend Christy is also taking part. Our good friend Valita is taking part. Our friend, who else is doing the What is Slow Stitch? Who else? I can't remember if Dawn is doing it. I'm not sure. I don't think Dawn's doing it. I'll have to check. Just thinking, who are the other YouTubers? And then there's lots of our other wonderful friends that are also, taking part in it. So that's that stitched around, and that's all you need to do. And the great thing is, if you have a friction marker and you want to use this as a project pouch, you can actually just write on it with the friction marker, and then you can erase it with heat with an iron or a hairdryer, and it will erase. So that's just a fun idea. You could also sew a name or an initial on it if you were gifting it as a friend. So that's another idea. So I'm just going to tie this off, and then I'll just secrete the thread by taking it through to the other side and then just cutting it off so it springs back into the fabric. And then we can come up and stitch our stamp on. So I may as well use the same thread, seeing I've got it. And again, I will secrete my end underneath the stamp. And then I think again, I'll just probably follow around. I've got a line to follow, so I'll just put lots of little stitches in. So I'm kind of doing a running stitch as I go. Just looking at the time, need to make sure I actually get the pouch stitched together as well. That won't take too long. And then we've got to do a covered button. I think we'll be right. If I need to edit some things out, I can always do that. Kind of get carried away when you start, don't you? It's like, oh yep, I'll do this and I'll do this and I'll do this. So again, this is all the nice little details that make the piece special. Stitching the stamp first and then stitching it all on all adds lovely little stitches. Can you hear the cicadas outside my window? Summer in Australia, as I say. Sounds of summer. It's going to be a warm weekend ahead. Had a bit of rain this week, but not a great deal. And so I also want to do the rick-rack, I suppose. No, I'll do that maybe when the pouch is together, because that will be in the top bit there. So I think probably the next step is actually doing our covered button, because I want to show you that, and I don't want to, even if I have to do some of the stitching of the finishing of the pouch off camera, I'll show you the start of the process and how to make the little loop as well. So for this, I'm going to take this shank button and I'm going to select a flower that I want to feature on my shank button. I was thinking actually maybe this one over here. So I'll cut that out a bit around it. This is a lovely lightweight fabric. I think I got it at the Embroiderers Guild D-Stash market with a lovely lady that had a whole lot of her little fabrics in bags that she was selling. And there were some really interesting ones. Yep, so that's like that. So we'll gather around the outside to create a Suffolk puff. Quite slippery, so I'll make sure I pull that through because it did just slip out the first time. So you just keep going in and out like a running stitch, gathering it up and progressively just pulling the thread through. You don't want to go around the whole circle without sort of pulling the thread through. Just a bit in from the edge, particularly on this thin fabric. I'm just keeping a bit in from the edge so it doesn't fray or pull through. And then you want to get round to where you started and go a stitch further, sort of past that. Then once you've got that done, you can pull your little Suffolk puff closed like that. and it will close around your button and you'll have a lovely little covered button. Now in this case I think I need to make it a little bit tighter, so I can then add some extra stitches in. I'll just work out where my little center bit of the button is. It goes through that way. So we'll just go through. So we might make this tight first of all. Put a stitch in. And then we'll just do some extra little gathering stitches if I can find my way through the center where the shank is. So the shank is the bit that sticks out from the button. Some buttons that sit flat on the fabric, they don't have a shank. But if you're going to use a button for a pouch, the shank is actually handy because it will kind of sit out and then give you something you can wrap your thread or your ribbon or your little sort of closure or your elastic around. So it does assist with the process. Now at this point you can adjust it if you want it to sort of, like in this case I want the flower to be sitting a bit further over, so I can just kind of maneuver it a little bit, then add some more stitches to get the fabric to behave the way I want it to behave. So I'll put a stitch in there just to kind of tighten this bit over. And I'll just look at the front again and just give it another little jimmy over this way. And then put another stitch in over this way and pull that in. Another stitch over this way and just pull that nice and tight. I think that's pretty good. I'll just put a stitch here, pull that as well. There's probably a little bit poking out there, so I'll just give that a stitch also. And yeah, you can keep manoeuvring it as you stitch just to get it exactly where you want it. It will go flying around on occasion like that. I can put another stitch through there just to catch those pieces nicely. And you do just want to make sure it's all nicely sort of held, because if it is going to be having something like fibre wrapped around it, you do want to know that it's kind of not going to come unravelled or get tugged on. So I will just finish adding some stitches. Again, I'll just check how it's looking on the front, but I'm pretty happy with that. I think maybe just one more stitch over here to just pull this bit nice and flat, like that, and like that, and like that, and then tie it off. And I probably should do another stitch even though it unthread itself, just to make sure it gets fully tied off. Checking, oops, I just managed to headbutt my light. Lucky it wasn't hot. And just another knot just to be sure. I know there's others out there of the Mini Knotting Society. You've shared that you're a part of that society. I think that's fine. Okay. So that will be our little closure button that we'll put a loop around, but we can attach that a bit later. And so, yes, that was going to be up the top. So I think we're now ready to sew our little sides together. I think I'll probably just use a neutral because I really want the pop of colour to be on the inside. So I want, even when you're just looking at the pouch, you're not really seeing that huge pop of colour, and then you get that lovely surprise when you open it up. I think that's fun. That pleases me, and that's what this is all about. Do what pleases you when you're stitching, and I'm sure, yeah, if you're making something for someone else, they will probably love it as well. Obviously, if making it for a friend, it's nice to think what colours they'd like, what styles they'd like, but yeah, if we enjoy looking at it, someone else probably will. The sky's turning a beautiful purpley blue colour. I wonder if we might get an aurora tonight. That would be a bit exciting. I'd have to dash outside if that was the case. Okay, so I don't know where I've managed to put all of my quilt clips. I think actually I have them on a project over here, don't I? Yes. I'm going to steal a couple of them off it because this project needs it right now. Where are the other ones? Here they are. Do you do that? Do you use your like clips on or your pins or whatever it is that you regularly use, and then you think, where have they all gone? So yeah, that's the right way up. Great. Always good to check before you start stitching. And then we can just hide our starting end in here. And you can just do, there's a few different ways you can do stitches. I don't mind this being a bit sort of a noticeable stitch, so I think I'm just going to do a whip stitch just straight across both pieces. Because I think that will just add a nice little detail. It's nice and easy. You can do, which I've shown in some of my paper piecing, you can do a ladder stitch, which becomes an invisible stitch. But this envelope's kind of all about different slow stitchy stitches, so I think it just adds another stitch to the mix. So I'm just making sure I'm obviously not going through to the underside, just catching the two pieces. At this point I can probably take the clip off because it keeps catching my thread, which we don't want. Just hold my two pieces together. Yeah, I kind of like that it almost looks like it's sort of, yeah, got a bound edge on it or something. So I do like that the stitches are visible. Again, you could do crosses if you wanted going down it as well. Lots of possibilities, but this is just a nice way to get a nice strong stitch to hold it to, which is helpful because I can go right through the edge pieces. And it creates a similar stitch on, yeah, front and back. Not that you'll really be peering into that bit of the envelope anyway. There we go, and there we go. Great. So yeah, I love that. I love that little sort of like that slight raisedness it gets. I think that's lovely. So then let's go. We can just continue with our needle and thread again. Down here, put an extra one in up here to start. Oops, make sure I'm coming through the right bits. Just want to make sure I'm catching some of the middle fabric as well as not just catching the edging, or not catching just the woven piece, because I just want to make sure it's well stitched together, well held together, in case I stuff it full of a project or something. Who knows? This one could go out as a little gift. It's funny though, when I make stuff I get quite attached to it. Do you find that? Although I suppose at some point you get lots of things, but I have sort of sent, yeah, various bits and pieces out to folks, so. And you always kind of plan to come back and do some of your projects, yeah, again, but then you have other project ideas, and yeah, you don't always get to repeat a project. But I'm just pleased how this one came together first with the weaving. This was just my little demo weaving piece after I'd done my bigger piece that will be the backing for my Roxy Journal of Stitchery. And this was just the leftover piece. And yeah, to then be able to turn this into a beautiful little slow stitch pouch and share that journey with you has been, yeah, really, really fun. And I think we might get it done in time. As I say, if I need to, I'll just edit out that little bodgy bit when I was doing the button. And if you don't see a bodgy bit when I'm doing the button, it means it's been edited out. If you see it, well then I've decided, yeah, there's enough time in the video and you get to see bodgy, because hey, we all do bodgy, don't we? It's human, it's natural. The best and the worst of us do it. Not that none of you are the worst, I should just say the best. All of us do it. You're all the best. Just hit a hard point there. Oh, it's where the fabric has like this white sort of embossing detail on it. I've noticed it is a bit harder to stitch through, and I think I got a double bit of fabric as well as we came into the corner. So I'll just make sure I get a nice little closure on the corner here as well. Great, and then we'll just do a knot, and then we'll secrete the end into the envelope. Like that. Then let's just get rid of this little fringy bit. Then we need to put our a little button down here and attach our little bit, and then if we've got time, if not, I will just attach this on with some glue, and then all I'm going to do is probably some little stitches across it to hold it in place, and again not going through to the front, but let's see how we go. So we need to, I can probably use this thread to stitch my button on. I might want a smaller needle just so I can try and pass through the where the shank is if I can when I'm attaching it. That bit of thread. Yeah, I just love the contrast between the neutrals, and then this pop of colour is a lot of fun. So I'll just start my thread off. Again, I could put the end inside, but I'll just put it here, but I'll trim the tail off. And I'll just put a stitch or two in just to make sure we've got a good hold for our button. And then I will come through, oops, leaps out of my hand, slips out of my hand. There's the shank, so I'm passing the thread through the shank just to get a good hold, and I'll probably go right through to the back now and come back through to the front as close as I can so you don't really see the stitch. Not that anyone is going to be peering inside anyway, but just showing you the technique in case you want to use it. And then again I'll try and pass my needle through the shank, so just finding where the shank hole is, and again I'll go through to the back. Pop out as close as possible to that. And then we'll do that a third time. You can do it more if you're kind of wanting to be sure that it's going to all hold beautifully, but I think 3 times will be enough for this video. And then I can probably actually tie this one off in the back in the pouch, and then just secrete, might do another tie just in case, and then I'll just secrete the end back through. Just secrete it through here, pull the thread tight and just let it spring, cut it off and let it spring back into the fabric. So that's our button, and you can see it sits nicely above the piece. And then we need to, I think I am just going to use this plain piece of sort of twine, well not twine, sorry, strange plain piece of scrap fabric, because I think that can just wrap around, and I just love that it's simple, it's straightforward, and yeah, is again a lovely contrast to that more extravagant interior. I think my brain's tired from the week. I had such a busy day today. I feel like the year is now back in fully into the swing of it. It was go, go, go. One of our team had been off with a migraine for 2 days, so we were a bit down on numbers, but everyone pitched in, which was great. Do I want this on the inside or the outside, actually? I think I want it actually on the outside, so I'm not going to put the knot here. because otherwise we'll be able to see the knot there. Not that it matters about the knot. I wasn't making a pun then, even though it sounded like it. So I will actually secrete my knot under here. Just put another stitch in to make sure I'm getting in, holding it, and then I think we can just attach this here-ish, pop up through it. In fact, maybe I can fold this end over. It doesn't really matter though, but that'll just mean that it won't sort of fray away over time. Good thing with slow stitches, you can always come back in and augment with another piece of fabric or another few stitches. It's kind of it can evolve over time. We can mend and we can piece and add things, embellish. That's what makes it really. See, I could even put one of my lovely little mother of pearl buttons on here, which I may eventually do, because that could be cute as well. But I think for now, because we're running short on time, I will just do it like this. And then I'll just secrete the end back into the fabric. But you might see in the picture that I have put a mother of pearl button on it after the fact. I've got the buttons here actually, and I can show you them, because I love my mother of pearl buttons. So yeah, we could put one of these on, which I think would be quite cute. So we will do that after. So I might even just put a tiny bit of glue on it just to hold it into place while we stitch across. I do find it does help. Oops, it's come away there. I wasn't holding the end of it well enough anyway. But it does just help to have a bit of glue just to help it behave. So yeah, that will definitely help us as we just stitch across and just put some nice little decorative stitches into our rickrack, or as I was saying, you can couch the rickrack down. That's another option. But I quite like putting in, because it's a bit of a bigger rickrack, it's nice to put these little sort of running stitches into the design. Yep, not coming through to the front, which is good. Again, I'm just putting little running stitches. So that's very cute, I think. Just that little flash of pinky purple in the stitches. Just like this. I'm not worried it kind of cuts off there. I could have probably made it slightly longer, but again, I think that's cute. I can always put a little button at the end of that actually. That's an idea too. But I'll do that off camera, because I think we're pretty much out of time for the 1 hour time slot. So I'll just secrete the end in, and then we can have a look at our little poucheroo. So we've got our covered, well, let's start from the front. We've got our little label that you can write on with your friction marker. We've got our stamp. We've got all our beautiful decorative stitching on the woven piece. We've got our rickrack with our little stitch detail. I think I've also left a little bobbly bit on the surface. Again, adds to the charm. Then we can close our pouch. We can put something inside it, like if you're working on a project or something. What have I got near me? Let's say even my little slow stitch tin, which I've got some additional embellishments to put on. We could put that inside, and in fact it goes very well colour-wise. Who knows? This could even become my little what is slow stitch envelope, and then just closes like that. And you can carry it around. You can have your threads in there, other things. And yeah, really lovely. Even if you wanted to kind of, yeah, you can do a wrap like this, but I think I like the wrap that comes around here because I want to keep the front so we see that lovely, lovely detail. So I hope you like that, and let me know in the comments if you're a bit inspired to make your own little pouch using maybe a piece of slow stitch, or if you're going to do some weaving and stitching over. It's just such a lovely little project, and have a think about putting a pop of colour if you're doing a more neutral outside. Thanks everyone.